Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
It is my sweetness. How's my
Okay,
big boy?
I'm good. I feel like we should talk about this just because it's something that we're both it's both very close to us. People who follow the show know that we are Chabad, and I feel like if we don't say anything, it kind of brushes over what's going on. It's very frustrating because the truth is very simple. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there assuming all disgusting, nefarious ideology. And what's frustrating is that, if you're in the community, if you're aware of what's been going on for the past 30 years, it's something that isn't a surprise, it's an inevitable that was bound to happen. And what we're talking about is the tunnel, so to speak, and the breach of the wall in 770. Now, I kind of agree with these Sfatis and Frenchies on some level, because what happened was the Rebbe wanted to expand 770. In the 90s, he was talking and planning on expanding it. When he passed away, there were two different factions of Lubavitch that were trying to take over and be in charge. And they were planning on doing this expansion for the past 30 years, dragging their feet. And they had this expansion idea that came out maybe last year or 2 years ago about expanding 770, and they had this whole idea. But what happened was these Bachrim have real complaints. There's no real livable quarters. People are sleeping, all over 770 because there's no place to actually live in, so to speak. You have all the Yom Tovim, Chabad, Hasidic, and regular Jewish holidays where thousands of people flock to 770. There's 3,500 shluchim that come up with their families once a year to do the shluchas convention, and they can't even house them, in 770. It's so tiny. So there needs to be an expansion, and they've been dragging their feet for 30 years. So also in Chabad, there's a major focus on the Chatchila Lariba. Just get up and go and make it happen. Do something about it. You complain, do something. And they did something. Was it legal? No. Did it cause structural damage? No. Surprisingly, they didn't.
What? You're kidding me.
Yeah, that's what I posted earlier today.
Because that's what they were afraid of.
That's
why the police blocked it off, because they were afraid there was actual structural damage.
Yeah, they did not. They apparently they had contractors and engineers help them figure out what's going on, but they just didn't do it through a permit and through the conventional ways because it was causing too much red tape and they just needed to go. And I was even explaining this to a relative of Ruthie's, because I just came back from their her father's wedding, and they were asking me. They went up to me. They're like, "What's going on? What's the deal?" And as I was talking, a few things came to light. I realized, because if you look at some of the videos, they're being arrested, and as they're being arrested, they're singing the Gunim. In Lubavitch, if you think about it, getting arrested and thrown into prison and then being released isn't necessarily a bad thing. So they think they're doing the right thing. They think
kind of a badge of honor, like martyrdom.
Exactly. Not even martyrdom, just a badge of honor. Because in Chabad, martyrdom's a little different. That's not really something they focus on. They focus on positivity. So it's just they're doing all these things that in some way I kind of agree with. You have to quit the fussing around, quit the, quit jerry-rigging all this stuff, quit trying to go ahead and push off this inevitable, and finally it just burst. The dam burst.
So now these boys that dug this tunnel and went through the wall, they weren't doing it on their own, that they actually had an actual contractor and engineer that was working with them?
I can't speak for anyone. This is what I'm hearing online. This is what I'm hearing from different people. I don't want to go ahead and start saying something and then this goes viral. And then before you know it, everyone's claiming something or another. But from what I understand and what I hear, they got people like on some professional level to assist in getting this stuff done. And the problem is, unfortunately, in this climate and these anti-Semites, the stuff that come out of their mouths. I had this whole argument with this guy who I thought was a level-headed guy. He's Jewish, he's atheist, whatever, but like he's level-headed, and he's like asking everybody all over Facebook. I'm seeing him ask all my friends, like, what's going on at 770? What's the big deal at 770? What's happening at 770? And people are telling him that what's going on is like, this is what's happening. They're trying to expand. They didn't want to expand. Therefore, the yeshiva Bachram decided to just go ahead and expand. And he's like, it sounds fishy. This is ridiculous. I don't know what's going on. What's happening at 770? And finally, I called him on his BS. Then he like backtracked. It's like, well, I just wanted an explanation. No one was giving me an explanation. I'm like, I called him again. I'm like, no, they weren't. I saw you all over Facebook asking all these different people, like, what's going on? They give you the answer. You're not listening to them. You're thinking of some nefarious reason or ideology because somehow you got sucked into some edgelord Reddit poster who thinks that they're the ones that's going to prove everything. You're turning into some conspiracy theory nut. Like, and that's where I get really frustrated when it comes to these conspiracy theory idiots. It really gets under my skin.
What you said, like, let's put it this way, that to do what these guys did without the proper authorities, without the, without the, I gotta say that, no matter how good your intentions are, the minute you lay hands on someone else's property, let's put it this way, you might be 100% right, but the minute you lay hands on someone else's property without their permission, that makes you 103% wrong. No matter how good your intentions, no matter how 100% right you might be. And quite honestly, I found that out the hard way.
You want to tell a story about that?
Sad. I feel I'm still very sad when I think about it, that I did the wrong. My intentions were good, but I did the wrong thing. My sister gave me a coat, a very fine coat that my mother had, that if you wanted me to take it to a cleaner's, have it cleaned. I took it to the cleaners, and the cleaners, what happened was they refused to clean it. They checked it for shotness. They said the whole coat was full of shotness.
Oh, wow. So you threw it out.
Yes. That's what these people at the cleaners were. I said, you ought to throw this coat out. It's full of shotness. And me, I did the wrong thing. I know. And what I should have done was I should have given it back to my sister, explained it's full of shotness, and just let her take it from there, whatever she wanted to do. And that's what I did. That was wrong about it. Even though I was trying to go according to halacha, my mother shouldn't be wearing a coat that's got shotness, and it was wrong of me. It really was, and I admit it. And I would advise anybody else, no matter how good your intentions are, you might be 100% right, but the minute you lay hands on someone else's property without their permission, that makes you 103% wrong. And that's where these guys were wrong. And maybe like these crazy ideas that people are coming up with now, that like this guy who's got these crazy ideas now, that's what it came from. It came from the fact that these kids did something absolutely illegal. And so now all these crazy, people are getting all these crazy ideas because they did something that was illegal. Even though they meant well, but like I said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The old saying.
Yeah.
It's like if someone's eating treif, a Jewish eating treif, you can tell them, hey, that's treif, and you really shouldn't be eating it, but you have no right to go into their kitchen and take it out and throw it out.
I mean, honestly, there's some halachas that say that you shouldn't even tell them anything if you know they're not going to listen. If you know they're not going to listen to the halacha, you don't say anything.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because then it makes them like, now they have a law. Now they they have to listen to you, and then and more so than that, they like initially wouldn't want to listen to you, and then do the wrong thing out of spite, and you're initially now creating a bigger halachic problem than anything else.
I've heard that.
And
yes.
You were talking about when you were younger and about like your zealotness, and I think that's really what I think we maybe could talk about, of just the zealousness in our experiences, and the pros and cons of it, because growing up with Baal Teshuva parents, you definitely felt the zealousness. You definitely felt it because there's a level to it where for your parents, this is something new. This is something you're passionate about. This is something they feel right about. And as a kid, you're just thinking of like, you don't know anything else, but you're a little confused because, your grandparents and at my time, my grandparents on both sides and my aunts on both sides, they obviously weren't religious. And there are all these weird subtleties that I'm picking up as a kid in a way of like, just aunts saying comments, mentioning little things here and there. And then my parents getting very defensive and angry about it. And I'm just very confused because I don't know what's going on. Like, I think we've talked in the podcast earlier about like when we were watching Fiddler on the Roof with your father at the nursing home. And then there's that scene where they're all dancing, mixed dancing. And like your sister said some comment like, yeah, that's what like just something like not nefarious, but like just some jab. And I saw you get very upset.
I tell you the truth, I don't remember the comment.
I mean,
do you remember what she said? I forgot. I don't remember.
I don't know everything verbatim, but it was something along the lines of like they don't need like rules to enjoy themselves. See, they get to dance.
But do you know what one of your sisters noticed about that scene?
That wasn't a sister. That was me, actually, and I told that to you.
Oh, you? Oh, about the
drum. Yeah, it's okay.
Right.
I'm the middle child. No one notices.
I gotta give credit to do.
Yeah, that was me.
Happened when they were
when they were happened dancing, right when they had mixed dancing.
Interesting. Interesting that happens like that.
But the point is that the point we're trying to make here is that like, zealots always have good intentions, and I remember as a kid they talk about the beauty of a zealot, the beauty of Pinchas. They talk about Pinchas a lot, and Eliyahu Navi, and all these people.
Pinchas were to do that in this day and age.
Yeah, right.
Oh God, he'd be arrested in charge of first-degree murder.
For our listeners who don't really read the Bible and read the Old Testament, read the Chumash, read the Torah, there's a cute little story, I think in Vayikra, is Pinchas.
It's not cute, man. It's
a beautiful story. It's a story about
a
coming of age. No, essentially, the Jewish people are being attacked by Amron or Moab.
It was the Midian. What happened was
Midyanim. Yeah, that's what it was.
The Midyanim. And what happened was Bilam was hired by Balak, who was the king of Midian, and Bilam was hired to curse the Jews. Instead of cursing them, he winds up blessing them, because he tells Balak that he cannot say anything that God does not put in his mouth. God puts things in his mouth to say. And God put it in Bilam's mouth to, instead of cursing the Jews, he blessed them. So Balak was furious. And he finally, after 3 times of this happening, he basically fires Bilam. And Bilam says, okay, I'm going to go back to my land, but I'm going to give you some advice. If you really want to destroy the Jewish people, get your young girls, parade your pretty young girls in front of the men, and get them to sin with them. The God of Israel hates, sexual
misconduct.
Good, yeah, right. And so Balak did that. He had his daughter, not just any daughter. This is the daughter who was the crown princess.
Yeah.
The crown princess is the one that you save to have her marry some prince that you're making a peace treaty with. Like, this is the number one daughter. And instead, Balak was so anxious to destroy the Jewish people, he sold his daughter, Cosby was her name, in prostitution to I think it was to the head of the tribe of Shimon. I think his name was believe it or not, something similar to the word Shlemiel in Yiddish. It was very similar to that word. And he took her to Moshe, and he said to Moshe, well, is she permitted to me or forbidden? And it wasn't that he was just in love with her and they were going to have a private, tryst. He wanted to purposely parade what he was doing in front of the Jewish people, like an in-your-face type thing. And he took her to Moshe. He says, is she permitted to me or forbidden? Moshe said, forbidden. So he said to Moshe, see, Moshe's wife, Tzipporah, the Jewish people were not a nation yet. So her father originally was Yisro, who originally was an adulterous priest, who instead gave up his adulterous ways and took on monotheism, which got everybody which totally got him ostracized by the idol worshiping community. So Moshe, there's a whole thing. Moshe married his daughter. So the head of the tribe of Shimon, Shlemiel, whatever, says to Moshe, wait a minute, you mean like you and your wife didn't you take a non-Jewish woman as your wife? Which, of course did not make sense, because the Torah had not begun yet. The Jewish people really weren't a concrete recognized nation yet. And then he took Cosby to his tent in front of everybody in Israel, and everyone knew what they were going to do. He purposely wanted everyone to see them going into the tent together. So Moshe doesn't know what to do. Aaron doesn't know what to do. Pinchas, his grandson, runs over to him and says, this is a disgrace. He says, shouldn't this man be executed, be killed? And Moshe said, well, he who interprets the halacha should carry it out. So Pinchas took a spear, and he was a spear that was long enough that he could do this from the outside of the tent. And when I taught Hebrew school, I used to say, and he took that spear and wham, rammed it right through the two of them like two pieces of meat on a shish kebab. And according to the Medrash, they were still alive when they were both stuck. They were both in the spear together. He picked up their bodies, and he took their bodies out of the tent on the spear. And let's put it, the part of their bodies, I can't go into too much detail, but the part of the bodies where they were committing the sin were totally turned inside out and exposed. So all of Israel would see exactly what they were doing. And then he threw them.
So that's the point of their perspective, is that there was a Shiloh. The two big Rabbanan did not know what they were doing. They've been arguing for 30 years, not just for a moment. And then finally, these Bacham are like, okay, let's just do something. If it's illegal, it's illegal. Let's do something.
But they're not on the level of Pinchas.
In their mind, in their mind, that's how they see it,
Well, they see it wrong. Too bad. And 50 years from now, when they're older, middle-aged men, they will look back and realize, oh, did we goof up?
I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's just wait and see.
My coworker, who's not Jewish, said something which made a lot of sense. She said the parents of those boys now should have to pay for the repairs.
Yeah. There has to be repercussions. I think we should start moving forward. I think if they block it off and then still go back to debating in another 30 more years, nothing happens, it's just going to be a waste of an opportunity.
The thing is, so it's up to some very wealthy Gavir to approach them and say, listen, I'm here. I'm with your permission, I would like to take this project over and make it like, someone who's on the order of an Elon Musk, maybe, someone on that order, to step up and say, listen, I would like to hire an engineer and an architect, and we're going to do this. but it's not to a bunch of kids to.
I mean, they have this like website talking about expansion, but I think it's a nice idea, but I don't see, it just seems ridiculous and frustrating. It kind of reminds me of what happened at my shul. And they tried to talking about an expansion. They had this whole idea of an expansion. They've been talking about expansions since they bought that house.
I know.
And it's just like we were so close to an expansion, and due to certain situations, things fell through. It didn't follow through, and they fell through. And when it happened, it was very frustrating because I was trying with another friend of mine who is like a really big in, trying to get this expansion done. And he's like, why don't you contact your siblings? Why don't you ask them for stuff? And I'm like, I know what they're going to tell me. And they're going to tell me is we'll believe it when we see it, and sure enough, the building expansion program ran for maybe 6 months before everything just collapsed on itself. And I think it's very sad and frustrating that like it's very hard to feel like you make progress, because this is something that I even was talking to some people about just in general. It's hard to feel motivated when waking up every day you're going to fail. And it's just like, it's very frustrating and very annoying. And that's why in my head, I'm like, I'm kind of glad they did it, because now people are talking about it and now it's getting more attention. And I hope to God this does right. But if the Chabad community and the Chabad administration capitalizes on this situation well enough, they can raise funds real quick and start the expansion real soon if they capitalize correctly. And I hope they do. I hope they do.
How do you think they could? I'm like,
how can they capitalize on it? Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. First off, you contact all the shluchim in the Chabad headquarters that are connected, that are on social media. Okay. You get them all to focus on talking about the need for expanding. Okay. You then get a hold of working on a fundraiser, because they already have funds there. They need like 35 mil. The whole program is I've already seen it, like them try to make this happen. That it takes you do need $35 million. Start just raising that money. Every bit counts. Every dollar counts. They've had plenty of fundraisers. That's one of the things they're good at, is fundraising. That's what they do throughout the rest of the year anyways. Fundraise it. And because of all that, they can have more, interest in a proper design, because architects can design, and this is my field. Architects can design stuff pretty quickly, pretty effectively if you get the right one, and if you get the right money. You go ahead, get the construction documents, push it through permit. Right now it's very hot. The whole thing is very hot. You push it through the permit, get things done. And you can pump out get construction done with maybe a year and a half. If you can go ahead and get the funds running, get the proper architect, get the construction documents done, get it through the permitting process. I don't know how New York works. I know how Maryland works, so it's a little different. But because of the I guess the press and the passion of it all, then finally there could be something, and they can utilize it if they do.
Yes, something you really hit on something that, God willing, I hope this will lead to something very, very positive, like this expansion. What exactly though, like in what direction did they want to expand? Did they want to go and take up the entire block where 770 is located? Where were they thinking about expanding?
Okay, so what's happened is that this is, and listeners, I'm trying to say this is something that I understand, but I can be very wrong. So I'm not saying this is God sent. I'm not saying this is 100% true. I'm not trying to debunk whatever. This is my understanding and my perspective of what's going on. Okay. They own the corner block from 770, one building next to 770 on, if you're looking at it from the right, and 770 all the way to the left, that corner block, that corner block of between Kingston and Eastern Parkway.
One thing about like Brooklyn,
Brooklyn, what are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the street that runs alongside. Okay, one side 770 is Kingston Avenue, obviously. If you go down the block, you come out of 770, you go to the left, and you go down the block. The next block over is Brooklyn Avenue.
Yeah, so no. So
they're not going to go to Brooklyn Avenue?
They can't. I don't think they can. I think they can only get to, if I'm not mistaken, they only get to maybe like 7. I want to say 750, maybe. Like they own everything. I think up to like 750, and then to the corner block of Kingston.
Right.
And then further down Kingston, they have that whole office thing. And maybe, I'm trying to understand, maybe even the building beyond the office by Kingston and Union, I think.
Well, there definitely is a need of, I see what you know. Yes, I hear what you're talking about. Yeah, it would be Union. Yeah, be all the way over. Right.
Yeah,
that would make sense. But you're right about, the expansion is very definitely needed, especially the Yom Tovim. I mean, people are crowded in there like sardines, especially the women's section. It's very crowded. But as far as you're talking about like sleeping, first of all, you really shouldn't be sleeping in a shul to begin with. Number one. Number two, there's definitely a need. They have a hotel in Crown Heights, but it's small. It's very, very small. They really need to have either a couple more small hotels or a large hotel. There's definitely the need for a large hotel in Crown Heights.
The thing is that it's very old school, but people sleep in the base medrash. That's just what people did back in the day, and that's what they do in 770. Because you have Bachrim come from very poor families. They get all their money, they can scrap together, they send their Bachar for like a year or two in yeshiva in 770 when they're like 19, 20. And they go ahead and they're able to, stay as best, do with what best they can. So they have like, some junky mattress they can throw down somewhere, they can like lean over, like Bachar legit, like it's in all positive sense of the word. I'm trying to make it positive, but in all positive sense of the word, it's really pushit the way they run their lives, especially in living in 770, especially at Tzfati or a Frenchie. These guys are pushit. They don't care about anything else except learning Chassidus, doing what the Rebbe wants from them, and like maybe chilling on a Shabbos day. Like they don't, like they could sleep in the base medrash on a wooden bench with a little bit of a mattress, above it, and that's it. They're fine.
I've seen people sleeping in airports.
Yeah. So
on the floor.
So that's the kind of person you're dealing with here, where on some level they are zealots to a point where it's just like they don't care about anything else. They want to expand 770. This has been going on for 30 years. They feel like now's the time. It's like, and the reason why I'm talking about it in this light is because I'm not going to talk about the negative sense or the other aspect of it, because it just doesn't help. I think what's really going to help is understanding why they did it, and putting a positive understanding of why they did it, and being able to go ahead and like hopefully get something done to really get people to start thinking about expanding, 770. Because there's actually a movement called Expand 770. You can go to their webpage, expand770.com, and they've been trying for many years to make 770 big. And there's an initiative that they can do. You can donate as well. They're trying their best to expand, and like it's just it's just frustrating because they had this whole thing, this whole expansion idea. I think, let me click. I'm clicking on this thing right now. 2020, they started talking about this expansion idea. And they got some, I guess, architecture firm to do S. Wider Architects start working on an expansion. And it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's really cool. But it's going to take a while for people to start thinking about what's going on. And that's why it's just so important now to start talking about an expansion in 770, the importance of the expansion of 770. And now I should think that most people should start talking about it and really start saying, well, we do need to extend. It does get crowded on Simchas Torah.
One thing for sure, it has certainly brought attention to the problem.
Yep.
If nothing else.
Attention. But that's a good thing. It could be utilized well.
It
can be utilized well.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right about that. Yeah.
But yeah.
But so no.
What?
Anything else?
Anything else? I mean, we're almost up for time, but I think it's just something that we should keep in mind, the importance of not having so much machlokas, not being so concerned. And it's something we should take from ourselves. Like, if you sit on the fence in anything in life, something eventually is going to push you one way or the other. Like, that's just how it's going to happen. Yeah. Stop being on the fence. You can't be on the fence. Make a decision, choose a side, and go with it. Did you ever have any feelings like that at one point where you were constantly staying on the fence and then eventually something happened? You want to talk about
it? It's just well, I've always had a hard time making decisions because unfortunately, I was in an atmosphere where if you made mistakes were not tolerated.
Yes.
And your father was in the same environment too, where mistakes were not tolerated. And when you're in that type of environment, you're afraid to make a decision, because if you make the wrong decision, whoa, you are going to pay. You've got hell to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's not a good idea to, of course, to be that way, because we all make mistakes. We're all human. And when a decision has to be made, a decision has to be made with the best information you have and the best of your knowledge. And you can't be afraid. It's I was watching something. There was a program called the Donna Reed Show where the son in that particular program was having a hard time making a decision. It was about decision making, and they had this. I forgot the name of the baseball player, but he was playing in the Los Angeles Dodgers, who was advising him, and he said to him, "Remember, a bad decision is better than no decision at all."
Yeah.
Of course, in the program, I kind of got the kid in trouble at the end because two girls wanted to invite him to the Sadie Hawkins dance, and they were both asking him. So he chose this girl, this girl, and the other girl got mad and walked away because he chose this other girl. And his girlfriend says, "Oh, it's so wonderful. We're going to have such a great time at the dance." And he says, "Yes, I remember what my friend, I think it was DeRocher, from the Dodgers told me. He always told me a bad decision is better than no decision at all." And she goes, "A bad decision?" I didn't mean it to come out like that, but she gets mad at him. She said she doesn't want to go to the dance with him, and she storms out the door.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
But it's true. It's true. A bad decision is better than no decision at all.
Yeah, I think I've done that a couple of times where I didn't know what to do, and I realized that if I sit on this, I'm just wasting time, and I have to make a decision and then run with it. I mean, it didn't help me sometimes. I had moments where I would make a decision, not impulsively, but I can't think too much on this. I just have to go, and I do it, and then I get really screwed. But other times, I just feel like I just need to do something, and I don't get screwed. I just start shifting my ideas or start figuring out what else needs to get done.
Well, a lot of times we learn, this is life. A lot of times in fact, most of the time you really learn from these bad decisions more so than from a right decision. But then because you realize, you know, you realize what not to do, and you realize where your information was wrong and how you have to change the way you get that information. Where you draw the line, of course, is God forbid criminal intent.
Yes.
But if you're a decent person, you have no criminal intent, you're trying to do the right thing, and that's all that can be expected of any human being. We're not God.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just like some people get this vibe that they have to do everything right the first time because of how they grew up and how their parents raised them.
Tell me about it.
And they took it upon themselves to make that like something that they need to do. And then they try to project that onto everything else and everyone else, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, like that. This decision I made with my mother's coat. Yes, it was the wrong decision, but something, it taught me a lot. And I didn't, and I tried my best not to repeat that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I'm trying this new thing. Well, it's not new. It's an old thing that I used to do and I haven't done in a while, is just trying to stay positive and just start creating positive scenarios and making up positive scenarios.
Sure.
Will this all work out? Well, eventually it will. It's fine. We're all going to work it out. And it's kind of why I get to this feeling of, it's best to think positive, even if you feel like the negative is very true. And because you can go down a rabbit hole, like in my head, I go down rabbit holes of like, oh, let's see how bad this goes. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, they could say this, I could say that, they could that, I could do this, and they could do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm realizing, like, eventually I get to a point where I'm like, man, there's like no positive way out of this. I'm like, let me just go ahead and just stop and just rewind, and let's just reevaluate what's going on. And I think that's kind of what's happening, where I'm just understanding, like, I'm always going to find something negative. There's always going to be a problem. Let's just start thinking like maybe this all works out. Maybe that crazy idea might work.
It's like when you read about these scientists that found these amazing discoveries, they didn't find it on the first try. A lot of them went through a lot of trial and error and a lot of failures, and they kept readjusting and readjusting and reevaluating until they finally hit on the correct formula or the correct invention. Let's say Edison, they said, how many different designs of the light bulb did he go through? What was it, 100 more before he finally found that one design that worked?
Yeah, but technically it really wasn't him. It was a bunch of lackeys that he hired and a lot of Jews that he took away their inventions and reinstated that he was going to be in charge of it. So
well, I was reading about that, but there was one thing that these historians that wrote this article agreed on. They said, as far as the light bulb goes, that was Edison. The other inventions, like the phonograph and the other things, unfortunately, those were other scientists that were working in his laboratory. But the light bulb, they said, was definitely his.
Yeah, but again, that's just also what a lot of inventors do. Like Steve Jobs, he was the one that created Apple, but in the end of the day, a lot of other people just really did a bunch of stuff and he just stuck his name on it, But yeah.
Now you're getting negative. Let's be positive.
Everything is going to work itself out. Have a wonderful Shabbos. I love you. I guess we can talk later on.
Okay, love you, honey. Have a great Shabbos. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.